Welcome to the Super Gamer Podcast. Welcome to the new Super Gamer Podcast, episode 135. Our guest this week has a PhD in game making as a learning strategy for chemical engineering students, is a researcher with Charming, the European Training Network for Chemical Engineering, is a former QA tester and games localizer, a lecturer, lots of stuff going on. We have Sílvia Fornós. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you very much for having me, for inviting.
So let's start with, I guess, the most recent thing. Maybe that's working backwards. But anyway, you have a presentation coming up, I believe, unless you've just recently done it, on games beyond entertainment. And you break it into 4 categories: gamification, serious educational games, off-the-shelf games, and game design for learning. Can you tell us about that presentation?
Well, yes, I actually cannot talk too much about the presentation itself, but it doesn't matter. I can talk about the content, okay? Yes, what I was, and I think that you're mentioning it because you saw my post in Twitter, if that's correct.
That's
right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. I posted it because while I was working on that presentation, I realized that, that before talking about the topic that I had to talk about, I needed a kind of context, kind of overview of my understanding of what are games beyond entertainment. So I did this kind of image that you can see in the post, and then it's not that I'm inventing the wheel, right? But it's just to put things on the table and to make everything more understandable. So I see 4 main lines of research right now in games beyond entertainment. The first one is gamification, which means that some elements of a game are used in another context for the benefit of that other context. Then there are like what we call serious or educational games, which are not game elements like in gamification, but whole games, okay, that are designed in order to benefit with other purpose than just entertainment. And then we have also, for me, a third category, I would call it off-the-shelf games, which means the typical games that we know for entertainment, but they are actually used in other contexts. So, for example, an example would be This War of Mine, which is an indie game in which the player, plays as a civilian. I mean, it's not the typical shooter. You're not a soldier. You're a civilian. So it's a survival game, and that teaches you a lot of ethical lessons, and that could be used, for example, in a class to integrate refugee students. Okay, to talk about the topic and to talk to integrate students that have lived something that may be similar. Okay. And a fourth category would be game design. So game design is used as a learning process. Okay, it's not so much the product. So it's not so much the game that you're making out of it, but the process of itself of designing a game involves learning, involves a lot of things are going on during that process. And this technique has been used a lot for game development related topics and for computer science as well. But it can also be integrated in other type of topics. And this is what my PhD is about.
And you recently submitted your dissertation. How does that feel?
Yes, I handed in my thesis, but I still have to defend it. Okay, because when you do a PhD, you submit your thesis, and then there is a committee that evaluates if that's good or not. If it's approved, then a few months later, you have the opportunity to defend your thesis in front of the committee. So it feels very good because I've been working very, very hard the whole summer. And it was my deadline was the last day of August. So for me, it was like such a relief. And yes, I think that I will remember my summer all my life, actually. So much work.
So you mentioned game design can be, put into several different fields as far as a learning tool. And as you said, that's what your thesis is about.
Yeah.
yours is specifically about it as a learning strategy in chemical engineering. So
Yeah.
First off, I want to say this is totally above my pay grade because I took very little chemistry. I like grade 10, I think was the last time I took it, which is 20 years ago. uh, so, but
So,
why?
well, much more or less like me, you know.
Well, then my question is, why chemical engineering? What is it that made you think that's the one I want to go with?
Okay. Well, first of all, because my PhD belongs to a network, and it was already structured like this when I was hired for the job, and that involves we are an European network in which there are several institutions and several companies and partners. We are quite a lot of people, PhD students, coordinators, and so on. PhD students, we are in total 15. And the structure of this network is that there are three main fields, okay, so involved. One is chemists and chemical engineers. A second one is educational scientists. And the third one is game design and computer science. And I'm in this third block. And yes, the advantage of this kind of networks is that you do your PhD in your specialization, but you can collaborate with other PhD students that have, like complementary fields. And then you come up with a kind of, an interdisciplinary study, more or less. This is how it works, okay? So, yes, I don't have any background in chemistry or chemical engineering, but yes, I have submitted a PhD that it actually aims to improve engineering education. And I got, I don't know, hopefully it's approved. But yes, I got inspired because I actually work in Nintendo as a localizer. So I think that a little bit behind in my head, I have this influence from Nintendo. And I wanted to find a way to make chemical engineering students learn through game design. And because, as I said before, the main topic of my PhD, I mean, the aim of my PhD is, okay, we have these chemical engineers. They are supposed to think critically and to propose innovative solutions, okay? So based on that, I am proposing a strategy that challenges them. And through this challenge, they have to think critically and propose innovative solutions. And the way I didn't want it to involve programming into this learning strategy, because I thought that I wanted to focus on the game design part, not in the programming part. So for me, it was important to provide a kind of more visual constructing, constructing games like, so a little bit like Scratch, but it had to be to the challenge, to the kind of challenge that chemical engineering need. I mean, Scratch, it would be too easy, okay, to make a game with Scratch. For chemical engineers, it would be too easy. So what I did was, inspired by platform game level editors, like the most popular one is Mario Maker, Super Mario Maker, and Super Mario Maker 2. And the same game mechanics with this drag and drop pre-made elements try to make engineering related levels. And for that, I did different tests with people with a background with chemistry and chemical engineering. And the first thing that I saw was that, okay, if I want people to use their expertise in chemical engineering to make platform games, platform levels, because now we are reducing it to levels, not to games, I need a kind of special option in the editor where they can actually, at least, they can upload to the image, and in my imagination was, okay, this image should be related to chemical engineering. It can be industrial equipment, it can be whatever they want, but an image at least. And this is what I did, okay, together with a colleague. I designed the editor, and he did most of the programming part. And we created the GEL, the Game Editor for Learning, which is supposed to be used for this learning strategy for my PhD. And through this editor, chemical engineering students, they can create what they call process designs, which is like platform game levels that simulate the production of, for example, I don't know, let's say ammonia or any product that it's produced on an industrial scale, but this is simulated in a platform level.
So you did kind of just get into this, but I'm wondering why insist on a platformer like Super Mario Maker 2? Like, why not Minecraft or Roblox or Dreams, or even like, why not a shooter or an RPG or something?
Yes, it could be that could be other lines of research, but I had to choose one because I wanted to frame the whole experience into just levels, and for that I had to choose a type of a type of game, and I chose platformers because they were very easily connected for me to chemical engineering because of the pipes and all the industrial equipment that we can already see, in the games. So and that actually it was confirmed when I started to look into the curriculum of chemical engineering education. They have these flowcharts that they use to create these process designs that I was talking about. And this is completely related. The structure of flowcharts are very related to platformers. So for me, that was the link of the games with the content. I had to choose a game, I had to choose the content, and that was the link. And from that I started to create the strategy. It's for you say, okay, why insisting on platformers and not other type of games? Okay, it's not insisting because in chemical engineering education, this is completely new. I mean, what in education right now for chemical engineering, what you see mostly are simulations. They work with simulations. And when I try to talk, one of the problems, this is one of the issues that I was faced with when I was doing research in this area, was that chemical engineers who are not usually into games, they don't make the difference between what is a simulation and what is a game. So to begin with, you had to explain what I meant by a platformer, and then to use it in education for them, it was quite mind blowing because it's too informal for them. The way the education is structured, it's very formal and it's very structured, and it doesn't have, I don't know, the maximum that they use is simulations or kind of another type of games. For me to introduce an action game, this type of game, it was already quite different to what they have already, what they are already using now, and it worked because I have the results of my last study. It was very, very motivational. The participants were, the intrinsic motivation of participants showed that it was actually very high. So there is actually a field to explore in that area.
Right, you have a lot of papers about this, ranging from Super Mario Maker 2 as a tool for educational game design. You have from this year the Chem Jam, because you hosted a game jam about all this. The Chem Jam, how to integrate a game creation event in curriculum-based engineering education.
Yes.
And you do mention in that one that it was an optional event, and as you said, participation was quite high. How did the students feel after doing it? Did they enjoy the experience?
Yes, a lot of people came to me and they were really like, they were really happy to have another type of approach into what they were learning, because they were able to use what they learn in class, what the content that they usually learn in class, but they were able to put it into a platform game. And for them, it was very, very funny. And it was another way to express themselves, okay? Because at the end, it's a type of media as well, games. And I mean, it was quite new for them to know that, you can use this tool to express what you were learning in class, and maybe other people can play it as well, So it's something new, and something that really attracts them, because young people nowadays, they are very digitally oriented as well. So yes, they were quite enthusiastic, and as I said, I haven't published the results yet, but hopefully I will do it soon. And there are also the conclusions of my thesis, which is very interesting, which I propose a framework to create game level jumps. So, because the two main pillars of my thesis is the GEL, the game editor for learning, and the other pillar is that everything, the whole experience, is it's framed into a game jam that I call, which is this game creation event for chemical engineers, but everything integrated into curriculum-based education.
You mentioned there that obviously people can play your game, and I think it's interesting that you're mainly focused on what the actual game design can teach to the people making the game. Because when I look at it, I think, well, hey, I could maybe learn some chemical engineering by playing the game.
Yes, but as I said, in this learning strategy, it's more important the creation process. I mean, you learn through the creation process rather than through the resulting artifact. Of course, you can learn by playing it, but you would need the designers with you, because what I did actually, and I think I didn't mention it before, but in the GEL, in order to keep the challenge that I need, because actually that's the main point, right? The main point is that it should be a challenge. And if I give chemical engineering students, if you give them a platform game editor, it's very easy to create a game. So if you want to introduce the most difficult part of the whole thing, it's how to integrate the core game mechanics, which are, because the interactions that are provided by the editor are the original ones. I didn't introduce any new interactions. So it was like, the enemy that is jumping, this kind of spikes that you cannot bump into because otherwise you're going to die. And it's the original game mechanics. So how are you going to mix up those existing game mechanics with the image that you are uploading? Because to the image that you are uploading, you are creating a new game item to which you have to assign, one of the existing interactions. So that's the tricky part, and that's where learning is supposed to occur. Okay, so I don't know if it makes sense. It's all very abstract. It's much better when you play the game.
Well, I in your pilot study for ChemJam, you presented 2 master students with a math equation relating to ammonia, but the students chose to ignore the math problem and made a game about industrial ammonia production.
Yes.
So
yes.
You kind of just got into this, but like, is that bad? Like, is there a concern about
No.
like, well, were they limited at all? Like, okay, well, wait, what can we do with this platform?
No. That it was supposed to be like that, and I was happy that they came up with another solution, because that's what this strategy is about. It's about to trigger new ways of thinking. Okay, because I think that in current educational programs, especially for chemical engineers, for engineers who are, we're training people who have to come up with new ideas, who are going to face challenges. So we have to provide some kind of education that trains them in that sense, that trains them to face challenges and to come up with new ideas and to be quite creative, actually, at the end of the day. And I realized that in engineering education, everything is so structured, and that sometimes they don't have the opportunity to come out of the comfort zone and be able to be more creative. And that is what this learning strategy is about. Okay, so. And I don't know, I forgot now what the question was. Yes, the two students. Yeah, sorry. Yes, so I was happy that, okay, I was providing them with a problem and how you're going to interpret this problem in a level, but they had to think, and this is what I'm interested in another way to approach that problem and to find a solution. Okay, and it was they really enjoyed because it engaged them because engagement is another tricky part of education nowadays. Okay, so it engaged them and immersed them into this problem, and they were the following day we because it was a 2-day that pilot study. And the following day, they showed me the level that they created, and they were so happy. And look, we did this, and that is what I was looking for,
What about like gamification in this sense? I take it as you have a framework of how to sort of grade what they create, and it's a bit of a competition. I guess that's where the gamification comes in here. And I wondered, like, that would work for me because I love to compete at like anything. But what about those students who aren't into competition? Like, is there a way to motivate them that doesn't involve that?
That's a very good question. This is one part also of my thesis, that actually, yes, competition is usually not recommended in education because it's a type of extrinsic motivator, and it doesn't. It affects negatively in learning. Okay, so it's always not recommended. But the good thing here is that we are talking about a game jam, and as part of my thesis, I define game jams as a game itself. So it means that there is this event that is presented to students as a game to create a game. Okay, so this is my definition of game jam. And since this is all a game, then the competition can be offered because it's not the main goal of the whole event. So I don't know if it makes sense, but that's how extrinsic motivation, actually, it doesn't affect them because the whole event, it's a game.
Right. So you can kind of opt in or out of the competition part.
Exactly.
Why are snacks important for game creation?
Why? Sorry, what did you ask?
Why are snacks important for game creation?
Oh, snacks. You said that because you read that. Wow. Okay, I see that you have really read the whole paper. No. Okay. In the game jam, there is a part where, yes, there is this kind of sharing snacks and drinks, but yes, kind of, I don't know, and pizza as well. They were invited to pizza, and the purpose of this is to create an informal setting, and this is one of it has to do also with game jams and this kind of game. Okay, game jams create because it's like there is a lot of things going on with game jams and we don't really realize, but it's during the maker community. Okay, because game jams are more similar to, well, they are game creation events. the sense of community and belonging, it's very important. And this is a kind of what I'm trying to create during the game jam. Okay, a kind of we are a group, we are here together. It's an informal setting. The game jam, for example, took place not in the classroom, not in the usual classroom where students usually follow the lectures. We were in another place, a kind of lounge. Okay, it was an open space, and it was and there were this snacks and offers, and yes, this kind of informality around, in order to create this sense of community, and that everything is a game, and don't take it seriously if there is competition. It's just to play.
And you held this Chem Jam in November 2021. I believe
Yes.
You had another one scheduled, but it didn't quite work out.
Exactly.
Do you have another one scheduled now? And what changes would you make from the first one?
Oof. Okay. There was actually, it was suggested to do a second edition because the first one was so successful. But the problem is that, okay, I'm doing a PhD. I'm not, I'm not a teacher in the university. I have my own work, and I couldn't manage. I couldn't handle it. I was writing my thesis, and I didn't really have time. It's a lot of work to organize all these events. There are many things I would change. I mean, after the whole thesis, and that's part of writing a thesis, right? You do research and you discover things, but you also realize about your mistakes, and you're learning from it. I hopefully all this type of learning and things that I realized, they're going to be useful for me for a postdoc or for an assistant position in the future. Right now, my main focus is to defend my thesis and to look for a job. Now I'm looking for a job. I'm unemployed.
All right. Before we switch gears, I did want to say I was trying to think of chemical engineering examples in like games that I know. And the best I could come up with maybe was in Breath of the Wild. You can light a fire in the grass to cause an updraft, and then you can jump and use your like parachute thing to fly up in the air.
Yeah. Yes, that's a good one. I really like that game. It's very nice.
It's awesome. That's an example in that game, I think, where I was like, wow, they thought of everything.
Minecraft as well, a lot. There are a lot of things with chemistry.
Right.
I think.
That the Minecraft stuff, I think, that goes beyond me. Like, people make things and I'm like, I don't understand.
Yes, I know. It's very crazy. It's true.
But shifting gears to so way back when, you did quality assurance and translation, localization for games. And a little earlier, you mentioned how the game jam itself is a game. Well, I've also seen you say, I think the quote is, when translating becomes a game. What does that mean?
When translating becomes a game. Did I say that?
Well, maybe I don't know if you took it from somewhere or not. It was on a profile of yours online showing all the localization you've done. And then in the little like message part, it just said, when translating becomes a game.
Yes, well, I guess I was referring to localization, which is a type of translation, but it's a bit more complex than that because you actually have to play the game. Otherwise, if you don't have any context, you will pretty much messed up, right? I mean, it's not like a normal paper that you can translate literally. It requires much more. And yes, I was mainly referring to that, probably. I don't know. So I don't know.
It's a bit of an odd question, I'm sure. And you may have just answered my next question, which, because you've also done localization for Netflix and HBO documentaries.
Oh, yes.
So is there any difference between doing like movies and TV compared to games?
Well, if you want to localize games, there is one thing that's gonna be very helpful, and it's that you must play games. Okay, so it doesn't go one thing without the other. It's like if you are a writer, you have to read books. It's the same. So, and actually, it also applies when doing research. I realized that, in PhD level, I found some PhD students doing, especially in game-based learning, or students, or even professors. So you can say as well. Sometimes I'm a bit surprised because they are doing research in games or game-based learning, especially, and they don't play. And for me, it's kind of, it must be so difficult to, if you don't play games, to do research about that area or to come up with games. So I don't know, that's I think that for me that's an issue, and that should be solved. And yes, back to about doing subtitles, of doing localization. Well, yes, it's quite different. um, how can I explain? Well, the thing that I think that subtitles, it's a maybe, well, it depends on what you are subtitling as well. But the main difference is especially the software that you're using. For subtitles, you see the image as well. You see the what you are translating, and then you see when you are typing, you see it on the screen actually on real time. So it's easier in that sense. In video games, you usually have, we call it this computer um, CAT tools. We call it computer assisted translation tools, and these softwares, they like divide the screen in two. There is the source language and then the target language that you're translating, and then it's divided, the whole text that you have to translate, it's automatically divided into segments, small segments, and you must be very aware of what you are translating. If it's the interface, if it's the interface or the controls, if it's the manual, if it's in-game text, and then of course you have to start asking questions, because you usually, you don't know, you don't have any context. So it's like, okay, and then there is a query log, a very long query log that you have to use simultaneously in order to, work in the better conditions, in the best conditions possible. But yes, there are a lot of difficulties when you are translating games, and you must be very aware of what you are translating, and to start guessing a lot of things, starting especially in Spanish, because I'm Spanish, so I translated from German, French, and English into Spanish, and there is this gender issue, so you have to start thinking about, okay, who is talking? It's a girl, it's a boy. I have to use which gender should I use? And so there is a lot of stuff going on. So yes, it has to be. You learn a lot of things with time, but it's quite tricky.
Are there any? What's the biggest misconception you think people have about either localization or quality assurance? Like, off the top of my head, I would think probably some people go like, "Oh, quality assurance, like I can play a video game."
Oh, yes, yeah. That's a typical one. I mean, it's very different to play a game than testing a game, okay? When you are testing, well, first of all, also there are different types of testing as well. I mean, it can be more functional testing, or it can be linguistic testing. I was doing a linguistic testing, okay? And what I want to say is that, yes, when you are testing, you have to go into the game and look into all the different options. I mean, if I take that way, what's going to happen? If I take the other, I go to the same scene back, and then take the other way, and all. It's like you have to try to trigger all the possible actions that can happen depending on what the player decides, and yes, when you're playing, no, you do whatever you want. I mean, you're just enjoying, and testing. It's like work, and trying also to guess a lot of things. And well, in my case, it was linguistic testing. I have to pay attention a lot to the text on screen text, and also to dialogues. And I remember, now that I mention it, when I was translating for Netflix, sometimes I was so much into I was watching a movie or an episode. Sometimes I was so much into the plot of what I was doing that I wasn't paying attention to the text, and I had to go back, and it was like, okay, I have to focus to the text. So yes, it can be tricky sometimes.
Have you ever considered making a roller dance video game?
Roller dance? No, but it would be fun. I think that everything that has to do with well-being and games, it can be a super nice option, I think. For example, that Ring Fit Adventure, I don't know if you played that game.
I haven't played it, but I'm aware of it.
Wow, it's awesome. I think it was a great invention, and there should be more games like that.
Yeah, the one that, although I did have to delete it for space on my Switch, but I was playing a boxing game. I can't remember what it's called now. But that was a lot of fun.
Yes. And I think that also in VR, there are some nice and interesting fitness apps in VR. But I would like to something more into, like, with game mechanics and something like Ring Fit Adventure, but in VR. I think that could be a good invention as well.
I did notice, because you had a video of one of your Ring Fit levels, I guess, and I didn't realize it kind of, I think this is what you're saying, you're fighting a boss, and sort of, as you do the move correctly, you do damage to the boss.
Yes.
That's cool.
It's super nice how the game mechanics of that games are intrinsically integrated into the physical activity. Actually, that's what attracts me into this type of games. I think that more things should be, and it may be a new line of research as well. More things should be explored in that area.
Yeah, as I said earlier, like, competition to me, like, I love high scores and that. I'm into it. The Peloton, for example, I'd never get one, but it would absolutely work on me. This idea that, like, there's a high score across the world, I'd be like, I'm gonna beat all of you.
Yes, it's a great motivator when you're playing games. That's awesome.
And one thing I like to ask people who have traveled the world, and you've lived in several different countries, any differences you noticed in the game communities there? Like, are certain games more popular in Spain compared to London, or how? What did you notice?
Yes, of course. Oh, okay. What did I notice? For example, I was playing okay, well, maybe it's too much to give names in that. Yeah, I have to be careful about what I say, but there are different tastes depending on, because at the end, playing games, it's also part of culture, and we are all different and have different cultures. For example, I've noticed that in general, those countries where it's colder in winter, I'm talking about Europe, okay, because I'm based in Europe, and it's where I've been living. I've been living around different countries, but always within Europe. Like countries like Germany or France, France is some areas, the north part of France, and also Eastern Europe, that it's very cold in winter. They play more games, than for example in countries where the weather is a bit better, like Southern European countries like Spain, Portugal, Italy. Especially in winter, because they have more social life and they are more outside, And I think that, but this is changing as well nowadays with mobile phones and all this. But before it was a little bit like that, console games, especially, and PC games as well. They were these countries were, or also in Scandinavia. It's like you are looking into to be with friends, but at the same time it's cold outside, so you can play games and be with your friends with a game.
I'm in Canada, and we definitely had this this past winter was horrible, like really cold and snowy. And so, the odd time we'd like to get out, maybe play hockey, and it just was not possible this past winter. So yes, certainly more video games were played.
Okay, yes, I think that's something that that drives you to play more video games than if the weather is nice outside, you want to be outside. But it's true that nowadays you can also play video games outside. So things are changing as well.
That's true. All right. If people want to check out Sílvia Fornós, Sílvia-Fornós.com, that's SILVIA-FORNOS.com. Where else can they find you and find your work?
You can find me on LinkedIn, on Twitter. There are other Sílvia Fornós, but luckily you don't get confused. If you type Sílvia Fornós games, you will find me.
Sílvia Fornós, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks to you for having me.